Hey everybody, welcome back to the Primas Podcast. I'm Cindy with the haircut. That's Jess.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in again. We appreciate it. How's everyone doing?
We're doing great.
I hope so. It's a 3-day weekend. Oh, I just found out I have a 3-day weekend. Woot woot.
Oh, you do? That's nice.
Do you?
I think so. Should I just use it as my floating holiday?
Yeah.
I might. I don't know. That's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really excited. If you can't tell, it's because we record these Wednesday evening. And I was just telling Jessica that if I continue the podcast, I'm not going to record during the week, 1 and 2 in the evening, because my brain alertness and attention to detail and everything is just like just acting like it's all good, but we're dying inside.
We have tape on our eyelids right now. Otherwise, they'd be shut. Can you guys see them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel you, Prima. Every week, I'm gonna put makeup on. I'm gonna do my hair. I'm gonna do this, and then the time comes, and I'm like, I'm so tired.
Yeah,
crying a little. It's like I can't.
I saw my hair in the last episode. If you guys haven't seen the last episode about cognitive distortions, check it out. If not for the cognitive distortions, for my hair, because I had this thing. It was like this. I don't know what it was, but every time I looked down, it was like boom. It was like this, guys, like literally like this. And so like you can't really see it, but then I would do this a lot. Mm-hmm. And Jessica didn't say nothing, so I was just like, great. And I was just like, just listen to it, Cindy, because I was just like pissed for the first 15 minutes. She's like, just don't look at it. Just listen. Listen to the information. So yeah, check it out. Yeah, but now I'm just like, you know what? I got to embrace my hair. I'm gonna have bad hair days sometimes.
It's beautiful. I love it. But I get it. It's like yourself. It's like you see it, you feel it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was so funny last week. You're like, Jessica, I don't care. I know. And I was just like, okay, Prima, geez.
No, because I was like,
just trying to look
bad. And you're like, no, I like it. I'm saying for you. Like, you weren't clear. And I'm like, I had a friend, like, I remember one time my friend Maria, we were going to go out to La Boom, like right after school at ELAC. Mm-hmm. And I was like trying, a new dress or something. And I was like, oh, how does this look? She goes, I probably wouldn't wear it, but it looks good. Like, just, what does that mean? It looks great on you. Like, you just said you wouldn't, like, it was just like, just tell me if it doesn't look good, have my back, say, you know what, don't do it. And yeah, you just pulled one of those where you could be like, no, Cindy, there's this part up here, tape it down.
I just wanted you to be aware of it.
I don't.
You're right. I could have been better. And like, yeah, you're right. I could have.
You always do that. You never give me a straight answer. Like my mom too. I'm like, just tell me what you want. Like, I can't read your mind. My mom's like, well, you should.
Yeah, you should. We're the same person. I expect more from you, actually.
I can't read people's minds. I'm really bad at that. Okay. I can read people's energies. Speaking of energies, we today are talking about death.
What was that?
Not funny.
Halloween thing.
That was definitely a nervous laugh of mine because I have been like dreading this topic for the last, like, I think Cindy brought this topic up in season 1. So since season 1, I've been mentally preparing for this topic because I'm like, Cindy, sometimes we can maybe come off a little insensitive and like, I don't know. And you're like, it's fine, Jess, it's cool. It's cool. I got it. I know how we're going to go about it.
I'm so excited we're talking about it because really, did I really bring it up in season 1?
No, but we brought it up not last season, but probably the season before.
Okay. Yeah, because to me, it's something that I think about a lot. Not anymore as much because I finally like have come to terms with death, but I just really like it because to me, it's not a dark subject. Like the way I look at it is, and I've gotten this from a lot of like Buddhist teachings. Like I quote Thich Nhat Hanh a lot because I did gravitate towards his idea of death. which we're going to get into, which is really beautiful and positive. And yeah, so, you know, when we grew up, I feared it. You know, I grew up pretty Catholic. Like my mom we were in church like 3 to 4 times a week, Catholic church, Catholic groups, like the Catholic message. We were in Catholic school for a little bit. And so we would pray the rosary, like in the evenings, like just some like hardcore stuff. And so I learned my idea of death was through Catholicism, but then my mom kind of disassociated herself with a religion. And that was kind of like, what? But I was like in middle school.
Mm-hmm.
And she was just like, believe what you want, because I'm having my own experience with this. And she was going through a lot because she really believed in the Catholic Church, and the stuff that started coming out about the priests raping the little boys, like that's been going on forever. She was just like, what? She started to question so much. And when you're a Catholic member, you're not allowed to question. That's like the devil is tempting you if you're questioning deeper into whatever is being told to you, like the Bible, right? Like the scriptures, all that stuff. So after that, she kind of gave us the liberty of like, you guys can believe what you want. I'm not saying don't even practice Catholicism. I'm just no longer doing it. So we didn't go to church as much anymore, you know, nothing. And so, yeah, it didn't sit well with me that there was like heaven or hell. And then once I started to study psychology and just, you know, expanding my educational information, I questioned it so hard that I'm like, how is it that if you look at a map of the world I took world religions at EPAC, and I remember, so Mexico, we happen to be Catholic because the Spaniards came and said, this is the new religion, right? Like that's how a lot of religions have formed. Like people get conquered and then like, it's like, now we're running the ship and you're going to believe this stuff, and whatever you believe, that's like, we're going to just kill you. And so so I thought, okay, well, these other people that believe in this other religion is because of this. So I started to trace back, and it's like, why do we think we're the real story of death? And everybody has their own interpretation. And so that's when it kind of started to click with me, like, nah, we don't know. I was just like, no one really knows. It's our interpretation of it. So yeah, that's my little intro to death.
Yeah, that's mine is very similar. It wasn't until I took at PCC, my community college, I took a religious studies class, and we talked about, I think, the 3 major religions, and I started questioning it. And like my interpretation at the end of the class was like, people don't like, we fear the unknown so much to ease like our minds about like something we have, no one's ever died and came back and said, guys, this is what it's like, you know, and to give us that reassurance. So I feel like, yeah, a lot of those like books and Bibles were made to give us that sense of security, but I also believe they are man-made. So I don't think they came from like a higher being. And I'm still not in acceptance as much as you are. But after reading, we finally ended The Human Law of Nature. Well, I just ended it. You said you've read it prior.
Laws of Human Nature, yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm glad he ended the last chapter on death, like the acceptance of it. And I love the way he worded it. And it was a positive message at the end of that chapter. Like, you know, it is a very tough topic to talk about all around, but I really like the way Robert Greene ended it. It made me emotional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, we're talking about Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene. And I like his messaging around death as well, because I gravitated a lot more towards live life to the fullest, because the next 5 minutes, we don't know what's going to happen. And so the closest person that I've experienced death with has been my dad. He died really young. He died at the age of 39. I was 11. And so now that I'm approaching that age, my older brothers have passed that age. It just gives you so much perspective into like, oh my God, we're so young and full of life. And I didn't get to know my dad like that. Like, I don't know too much about, I was really young and stuff, but like still to think like 39, like that's not like a very full life. And so I don't know, I just started to pay attention a lot to like when death does happen to younger people at birth, at, like maybe at 2 years old, at 5, like just young ages where I'm like, oh my God, no one is safe from death. And so it started to worry me, right? Like I went through that whole phase of like, I don't want to die. What if there is a hell? I'm definitely going to hell. I broke many sins, or, like broke sins. Like I committed sins. Yeah. And, there's just so much. And it's just like, I don't know what death is. What's going to happen? And so I started to look, for a really long time into that. And I'm like, and you start to find things, people saying like death is an illusion. Because as we celebrate life, we should celebrate death, because it kind of like, that is life, that is the human experience. And so I started to really gravitate towards, yes, you can die young. You can die in 5 minutes, or maybe not young, but like now that I'm a mom, I'm like, oh, I don't want to die now. Because before I was like, cool, I'm cool with it. Now I'm like, wait until she gets old enough to grasp and to be able to survive on her own. Then I feel like I'll be a little bit like, all right, I'm ready again for whenever. But yeah, it's trippy, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. And it's very similar to like the way I like how Robert Greene starts with like a historical figure or some person. I haven't Googled if that person he was talking about in that chapter was real or not, but it was the connection between like daughter and father, and that the dad was sick and she inherited his disease at a very young age. And so she knew her life expectancy wasn't going to be as long as most people, right? Like on average, I think right now it's 85. She knew she wasn't going to fulfill that. And she saw like the way the disease took her dad at 45. And that gave her perspective, where she lived her life to the fullest. And she was a writer. And I love how she ended with like, she never gave up once, even though she was like in excruciating pain. She would still write all the stories she wanted to put outside of her mind and onto paper before she transitioned into like the next life. And I thought that was so admirable, because it's like, imagine we were told that, okay, Cindy, we have until 40 years old. How are you going to live your life? Like it's in that realm, because, your dad passed away at like 39. How are you going to live your life? And that's going to change your perspective and the way I'm going to view my life today. I'm going to be like, well, Cindy, I'm going to live to like 80 years old. And it's kind of naive of me to have that mindset also, where no, I can't say that just because Cindy and I have different situations, that doesn't mean my outcome is going to be your outcome. But I should also embrace that mindset of like, live your life to the fullest. And I like how she was holding a pen until her deathbed, even though it was causing her so much pain. She was just like, no, I'm a writer. I got to put out all these words or all these stories out before I go. And she ended up passing, a little younger than her dad, which was at 39. And I just like crying at that point. I was like, shit.
And then what about her dad? How did her dad take it?
Yeah, he drank himself and didn't care about it. And it was just like, this is just the way it is. Like he let the pain, he succumbed to the pain. Is that the right way of saying it? Like he let the pain control his life and like the outcome of it.
Yeah, he had more of a like negative outlook, where his daughter to me was full of life. That to me, writing and having this urge, the pain it doesn't matter. Having this urge to live, because the time is near. Like for her, she knew, right? But like, I feel that sense of urgency. I feel like every single moment needs to be meaningful. Quick little side note. I was talking to my brother Eloy about this, because sometimes, brothers, sisters, we go back and forth. We give a lot of shit to each other. And this wasn't really giving shit, but like there was a little undertone, because he was talking about the Super Bowl and, sports. And I'm like, sports. And then he's like, and he defends it, right? Sports, brings community together. That's what I hear of him, like it brings people together. He does videos on it. And I think the videos are really cute to see everybody like bond. So I do see the positives, but my approach to that was like, it just doesn't fulfill me. So like, it's a waste of my time. And I know this is super exaggerated, but that's kind of the conversation. Why would I go to a game? Why would I spend my time? It's entertainment. Like, I'm not really growing from it. I'm not getting any like deep spiritual value from it. And he's like, does everything have to be that way? And so it's just like, no, but that's how it is for me. Because, and I think I bring it back to that, like, I'm older, like I have a child, like he's younger, he doesn't have kids. And so I think that also, right, like has a lot to do with it, where I'm like, man, if tomorrow isn't promised, me sitting here watching Netflix, because I get a lot of shit about that too. Like, why don't you ever watch Netflix? And I'm like, I don't have time. And it's not because I'm running around and I'm busy, but because I feel like I have better things to do with my time, because I might die in the next 5 minutes. That's a little exaggerated, but that's kind of like living in the moment, right? It's an example of living in the moment. Because there's nothing wrong with entertainment. If you're getting life and social bonding and, love through through having these circles and coming together and rooting for a team, that's beautiful. I can't deny that there's something there, so I just think it's cool. Those two very different perspectives.
Yeah, that is interesting. But I know where you're coming from. It's just to agree to disagree, right? You just have different perspectives.
Yeah. And I'm just saying, like, I think mine comes from like, life's too short. And don't get me wrong. I feel like I put maybe a little too much pressure on myself, where it's like routines, like I'm really strong about routines. It doesn't mean I don't get flexible when I have people over or when I'm obviously visiting, but it's just become like my lifestyle, where I'm just like, I can die tomorrow. I need to give the moments with my daughter, when I am with her, they need to be meaningful, and there's just like a lot of little things that I feel like the other thing is like taking things personally, like in life, when we take things personally, it's like life is so short for you to be mad, period. Even if you have the right to be, I get it. And of course, honor your emotions. I honor my emotions all the time. But I think that's what makes us so human, is that we have all these emotions. But if you were to remove them and then just kind of accept that life is death and it's okay, I kind of just think like, I wonder how much of the human emotion we put into the suffering aspect of death.
Yeah. And I never lost anyone so close to me, so I cannot talk on that. But I think like the movie The Lion King actually makes sense now. It's like, it's the circle of life. That's how it is. We're going to bury our parents. Our daughters are going to bury us. And that sounds like, it's too harsh. Let's not talk about it. But it's like, that's reality. That's inevitable. It's going to happen. And yeah, it hurts more when that chain is broken, when the parents have to bury the child. That's not in the human, you know what I mean? That's not the circle of life. But even that idea, like I remember when I went to Thailand, I was in my early 20s. And I remember witnessing a funeral there, and it was so different. That was the first time me ever traveling that far outside of the country, where I witnessed something that wasn't celebrated here. In Thailand, they had bright colors. No one was wearing black. Everyone was wearing like a white or like a vibrant yellow. And the casket was clear, so you can see the body. It wasn't covered like where ours are, right? It's like in a wooden box that's not see-through. And it was like a parade going on. And I thought someone was getting married. They had music, they were singing. And I'm just like, what's going on? And they're like, oh yeah, this is a traditional funeral. And like my mind was blown after that. And then shortly after, I had taken that like religious studies class, where I'm just like, yeah, so it doesn't have to be so black, so dark, so sad, you know, where there's like a gray cloud over you of like misery. There could be acceptance, there could be peace and light at the end of the tunnel, you know? And I think I like that idea more, like the celebration of life. And I think about it way more often than I ever have, is like, if I were to go, how would I want to go, you know? And I wouldn't want you guys to see me at like a wake service, you know? I would want you guys to be celebrating my life and playing videos of me and remembering me like that, you know, not remembering my body that's, you know what I mean? That's, my soul isn't there anymore. And I like that, like different cultures have different ways of like burial methods. And
yeah, I love that story. And so Thich Nhat Hanh is a Buddhist monk, and he has transitioned, and he explains that there is no life and death. So, you know, it just the way that we're presenting like a bunch of different ideas, I think it's so cool, because then you can study all of these different ways that people do it and grab what speaks to you, because no one knows the right way to do it. But I think to lessen the suffering, like you said, we can celebrate that person's life. And a lot of cultures do. And a lot of older civilizations did as well. And so what Thich Nhat Hanh says is that he represents the meaning of life in a cloud. If you can imagine a cloud. So he says a cloud never dies. A cloud becomes rain, tea, coffee, a river, a creek, and the water goes into nourishing plants, trees. And so sometimes he would take out a piece of paper and he would say, this is a cloud. There is a cloud in here. And he'd break down like the whole process, like how, what do you mean there's a cloud? Well, because a tree, paper comes from tree. And even if we didn't have trees on this planet, our air wouldn't be as clear. We wouldn't have a lot of different life and the sun. And so he just connects all of how we never really die. We just continue to transform our energy into different whatever. And it's, I really like that idea. I don't know if that's the true idea, right? Like, I don't know if that's what really happens, but I just kind of feel like it does, because I have a huge connection to nature. And I'm like, how is this so, like a tree is so, it loves us unconditionally. It does things very unconditionally. It provides homes and, you know, just so much. And it's just like, how is it that we just cut it and then that's it, it's done for our toilet paper? Like, there's no way, you know, I can't imagine something so intelligent like the earth, that it's not constantly transforming and that it doesn't know what it's doing. I think that it does. And so I don't know, I think that really spoke to me, that idea of our energy just moves from from human to something different. What, I don't know.
yeah. I like that idea of the Thich Nhat Hanh, of the cloud, and how it is like another metaphor of like that circle of life, you know, like it just continues. Like, yeah, now you're water and a cloud and you're giving back, and who knows, you know, what you might come back as, but we're all connected in some shape, way, or form, I think.
Yeah. He says in our tears there are clouds, and that we're 75% cloud. And it's just really nice. It kind of brings everything together. And another civilization that practiced like big stuff after death was the Egyptians, like the pyramids, the Great Pyramids of Giza. Did I say that right? I really want to go there, by the way. I want to go so many places, but I'm just so fascinated by. So the pyramids, do your own research, you guys. We're just talking death. Don't mind us. So the pyramids were tombstones, right? For the great pharaoh. I forget his name. King Tut. I don't quote me on it. Anyway. And so it was so elaborate. Scientists today, physicists today are still studying like how the hell did they create this? And for me, it's just like, why did they go to that extent for the celebration of afterlife? Like, he got buried with all of his women, all of his servants, chefs, just, he was like, let's take so-and-so, like we're all gonna go and it's gonna be great. Like they were so excited because they thought the afterlife was the actual gift. So imagine that idea where they're like, this is human stuff is not for us. We're waiting for the afterlife. So I think that's pretty cool. That idea.
I know. I remember learning about that too, and then connecting it like with my studies after that. The Egyptian culture, yeah, they would, from the moment they were born, they would start building those pyramids. So to prepare them for that time to come. And I'm just like, whoa, imagine that idea, you know? And here we are so fearful and like 32 years into this planet. And it's just like, we're still fearful of it. Like, I don't want to die, but I'm sure if it was instilled in us from birth in a different perspective, we wouldn't be like this today. And it's just inevitable, you know, we know it's gonna come one day. And I don't understand why we're so fearful of it, you know? And I would want to be more accepting of it.
Yeah. Well, we're fearful of it because we've been practicing to be fearful of it for generations. And I've never really enjoyed going to funerals. I went to my dad's and then I went to a friend's mom's, but the energy is so, I don't know if it's negative, but it's just like, oh, like I don't want to be there because, and I know that sounds crazy and no disrespect. I promise I don't mean any disrespect by this, but I just feel like, why can't we, and then there's codes of conduct. Like you can't laugh and smile and embrace and talk positively in a funeral. You got to be mourning. And if you're not, you didn't love the person, you're being disrespectful, right? And it's just like, it could be different. And so I always thought like, if anybody in my family were to pass again, and I repay my dad's funeral and stuff, I'm like, I'm sure the family would be like, what the hell, Cindy, you're a horrible person. But I'm like, if I'm going to go and like suffer, and then sometimes people fight at funerals or like while people are passing, that is very common. Like so many negative things come up where I'm like, I don't know if I can do funerals, you know, like they're so heavy. And it's just like, why do we got to put ourselves through this? Why can't we talk about the cool things? Like still mourn, but in a positive, safe environment. Like,
yeah, like play music, play a playlist that reminds you of me. And I remember for your dad's funeral, I don't know why this stood out, but I remember wanting to put the radio on and my dad was like, are you crazy? Like, we're not listening to the radio on the way to the funeral service. And I'm just like, why? And it was never explained to me, of course, but like, we can't listen to music. And then I just go back to that Thailand experience where they were drumming and it sounded like a parade, right? A parade's very loud and cheerful and people singing. And yeah, I wouldn't want it to be a very sad, depressing time. If it is my time, please, Prima, have my back and play the most annoying songs that, you know, I probably wouldn't play.
Yeah. Yeah. Same. And I'm very much like, I also got really like turned off by the whole burial system because I saw how it was a business because it's so expensive. It's like, you're just profiting off of this and we continue to go along with it. And so I'm just like, dispose of my body like in the ocean or something. So it doesn't have to cost anything, but I don't know.
Yeah, it is very costly. And if it is an unexpected death, that's a burden on the family. And yeah, I think the average cremation is like in the range of 10,000 right now in California. And the average burial cost is like in the 20,000s.
So you have to pay to put a decomposing, rotting body on the dirt and soil, but we got to put it into a box first, like this elaborate box, right? Like the boxes, it's like, we're dead. Why is there like so much going on with the box? Like the interior, it's comfortable. It's like, we're dead. Why do we, right? And like things that I'm like, you got gold on the box? Okay.
And the idea of being like shut, it like trips me out. Like I would not want to be shut in a box, 6 feet underground. Like, just don't do that to my body. And I would want to go out like Avatar style, just dig a hole under a tree and just bury me there. So I could give life to the tree in hopes.
Maybe we should start a new burial service. Think about it.
I've seen that where they're like, oh, this person can be a tree, plant their body and they'll be a tree. And I think that'd be cool.
Yeah. Or if you also like don't care about the whole burial stuff, you can also donate your body to science.
Ooh, I would like that.
Me too. Cause it's just like, make it useful. Like why it's just too much, but yeah. So chapter 18 from Laws of Human Nature. If you guys haven't read this book, it's a good one, right? And it's very long. So maybe like piece it piece by piece, because it's also a lot, right? Like there's a lot of different ideas being presented. But so he says that the law of death denial. So we are in this modern time, we deny death. We're like, no, it's horrible. What a horrible thing that someone passed, you know? And so he says, meditate on your death so that you will make the most about your time here. And it'll give you a sense of urgency and a sense of purpose for your goals. And we see this a lot when people have near death experiences, where like
death experiences,
they're not there, but also they know like they're very close. Like they're in a situation where like it's near death, right? And like their life flashes before their eyes. And like what really flashes is like random moments, but also like they say like, I don't know, they just come back from that like, oh my God, I have to live so hard because I can just die. It could just be all over like this. And I think there's something in that too, right? Like it adds a lot of, for me, my mom always tells me like, oh, and my mom's 65, she's about to be 66. And she's like, well, I'm old now. So I'm just going to sit here. And I'm like, at that age, I have goals for that age. Like I have goals for when I'm no longer in mom mode, you know, like there's just different phases of life that I'm like, well, if I make it to this age, I got shit to do. And I think that's another way of looking at it. Like life's so short, it can end. Like, so it gives you that sense of urgency to fulfill anything. It doesn't mean like go after a huge thing, but like fixing relationships with our family members. Like how many people do we lose? And then we say, oh man, I should have spent more time. I should have told them sorry, right? Like so many different regrets. And it's like, do it now because tomorrow you could die. So just make that meaningful, like have that pressure of that, whatever it is that you're doing, to do it really like deeply and well. I think that's the meaning of life. And a lot of us are like, oh, we're fine, you know, it's whatever. It's like, no, you can die tomorrow. Do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are some solutions to death? I'm just kidding. Don't die.
Don't ever promise me you'll never die. So, oh my God, you guys have to watch Team America. Shout out Team America if you guys haven't seen it. That movie is hilarious. And like they're puppets. And then one of the guys like, no, this girl tells the guy like, promise me you'll never die. And then he's like, I promise. And it's just the funniest, like it was just funny. But yeah. So I guess some solutions are live life to the fullest, right? Like live every moment as if it were your last. I don't think that every moment's going to be my last, because I also believe that you can speak things into existence. So I always say, I'm going to die. I used to say that I was going to either get shot by making like some sort of social justice thing, and I was just going to go out because that would be like honored to. But now I'm like, that I don't know if I'm ready to go out like that anymore, or like that's going to be traumatizing for people around. So maybe Titanic style, like the lady in the Titanic, where she died old, accomplished, warm in her bed. That's how I'm going to transition. I think we should think about these things. I think, why not? It's not like, if I am wrong, then I'm wrong, right? I'm not doing anything bad. I'm just saying, no, I'm going to, like my daughter will be like, I don't want you to die. I'm going to miss you. I'm like, I'm not going to die anytime soon. I'm going to die when you're old. And like that, I could be wrong, but it's also like, no, that's what I aspire to. So I'm going to speak that. Might work out. We'll see. We'll check in 85 years.
Good one. Yeah. That was one of my solutions is live life to the fullest. It's interesting. Yeah.
Another quote that I love is, understanding the shortness of life fills us with a sense of purpose and urgency to realize our goals. I know I kind of already said that. It gives us a sense of proportion of what really matters in this brief existence of ours. Like
Yeah,
when you realize life is so short, you're like, why didn't I play with my daughter more? Why didn't I, right? Like talk to my grandparents more. And my grandparents are getting old on both sides. They're just older, right? And they lived a great life, I think. And my grandparents on my dad's side, those are the ones that I grew up with really, really close to. Like my grandma helped raise me for a big portion of my life. And I know, because I'm the only one that doesn't live in LA. And so like, I know I tell Jessica, like, I know I'm going to get a call one day, right? Like, that's just the reality. I've played it out in my head and I've cried over it and everything. And I'm like, what am I going to do? And I came to terms with it. And every time that I do see my grandparents, I try to dedicate a lot of mindful time to them. And we talk and we bring up memories and we laugh and we tell stories. And I ask them stories about their childhood because I think it's super cool and trippy. And it explains a lot of their behavior patterns. And, it's just really nice. And so I know that if they do pass, like I gave them the undivided time and attention that I could when I was with them. And even when I lived there, like whatever my grandma needed or wanted, like, let's go, let's do it. So I think that's important, is that the people that we love and care about, be so intentional, because life is so short. We don't think about it that way, but it is, because we just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think that alone makes it short. Like, oh shit. And when you hear older people, like older people, like 90s, they always say the same stuff. Like, go after what you want. Don't be afraid. Like, it's not, they have so many regrets. And I'm like, I don't want to have those types of regrets when you're just there literally waiting, I'm assuming, to transition, but you're like, great, I could have done so much more with my time.
Mm-hmm.
And you hear that a lot. So I think it's important to listen to our elders when they talk about life. Remember in The Alchemist,
Mm-hmm.
where there was this part, I don't remember the exact part, but someone said, today's just as good as day to die than any other day.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked it, because that's how I have felt. Like, if someone's going to choose to die, right? It's just like, well, what day is good? When you're living in the moment and you're fulfilling everything. Like, if I died, I can say, all right, you tried, you did good. Like you were you did your best. You do your best every single day. And I think part of the solution is to be more intentional about our daily habits, right? Like the relationships we build, but also like to put more quality into our life so that we're able to live it to the fullest. Because if we have aches and pains, if we don't have the energy, we're not going to live life to the fullest. So like being more aware of ourselves so that we can experience life in quality, even if it is just to lay back on the beach. Put yourself in a position where you can do that, right? Like, do what makes you happy. Life's too short. Work on yourself, heal. Like, another one is heal. Mm-hmm. Because we talk so much about healing, we talk about therapy, we talk about human behavior. And I think right now there's just this big thing of like, I feel like we're staying in there for too long. Like, but do the work, because a lot of people are just, it's going to sound bad, but like complaining, like, well, this happened to me, that's why I'm like this. And it's just like, no, that's an excuse. Fix that. Fix your childhood traumas. And it's not easy, but I just feel like life's too short for me to be mad at my mom until the day I die and not experience her, some of the issues we've been through, or life's too short to not, I don't know, like a lot of people won't do stuff because they're embarrassed of what others might think. And it's just like, life's too short to care what anyone's going to think. Like, do what you want to do. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Well said, Prima. This wasn't such a scary topic.
Do you think it was bad?
No. I was just building it up way more in my head, where I'm like, no, we cannot talk about this.
Yeah. So yeah, we just wanted to bring it up because I think it's a kind of taboo topic and it might still be like, what the hell are they talking about? Which is totally fine, you guys. Like, yeah, we don't know what we're talking about because I just feel like we're so big, like the universe, everything is so big that like we don't know anything. This is just kind of our interpretation, and every single person in this universe has their own unique way of looking at the world. So there is no right and wrong sometimes, right? Because that's how you perceive the world. That's based off of how you grew up, your environment. Who are we to say it's wrong? Even when it's morally incorrect, something shaped that. Something gave life to that morally incorrect situation. So it's trippy. It's a crazy, I mean, I can talk about this forever and not go anywhere because I'm like, I don't know. Like it gets so deep, right? Like, what do I know? Yeah. So we talked about it, Jess. High five.
Yay.
Yeah, Jess was like, please don't. And I'm like, this could be the last season. We got to talk about it. So thank you for being so brave.
All right. Even though this whole month, remember, I was struggling with it. I was like, Prima, there's death everywhere. It's breathing down my neck. But here we did it. So thanks, Prima, for making me step outside of my comfort zone.
Thanks for allowing me to do so.
All right.
All right. So give us feedback. What do you think about death?
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.